Hey, Reverend Colonel here, out in the shop. Gonna do some work for the truck. If y'all seen my mud flap video that I did before, you'll see what I'm gonna do here. I previously had these mud flaps here on my truck, looking beautiful and bad. And I made this bracket, and apparently I don't know what happened, if I hit something or what, but that weld must have broke on the other one and I lost a mud flap. So I'm going to make this angle. Instead of two pieces of metal, I'm going to make it out of one by bending this angle iron, and I'm actually going with a heavier duty piece of angle. It's actually quite a bit bigger. And I'm going to fit this and bend it using a torch and heat and all that. So anyway, I'll let you see what happens. Alright, I got them both cut down to size, and now I've made me a mark here. You see it? There you go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut here and notch this out, and then I'm going to heat bend this and make a right angle out of that, and then I will weld on this joint here, but it'll still be all one piece, and it'll be stronger than it was last time. I got my notches cut, and so now I'm going to heat it up with the torch. Alright, you can see I got them bent yesterday, and now I got the joint welded. It's only one joint, so this side here, that's all one solid piece. This one got paint on it, but you can see it's a solid piece of steel because it's just bent around, instead of before the system that I had, when I had a T of metal like put together like this, and it just, for I guess whatever reason, the amount of movement and bouncing around that a truck gets, that T like that just wasn't an effective weld. So this is going to work better. This part here is going to connect onto the truck with two bolts, and those held fine before, and then the mud flap will attach onto this flat part on here. And so now my next step is to drill holes and make sure pre-fitment, everything's good, and then paint them and then install. Alright, after we got all this welded and everything, have to do a mock-up so before we paint it. So I figured out where this is going to go on here and over on the truck. This bracket's different, so it's not going to line up with those other holes there. So I put me a line on here showing right where I want it to go, giving myself a nice angle here, so I'm out of the clear of the tire, clear of everything else, fits real good. And then I made me a couple of marks here where the new holes are going to go, and so I got to drill those holes out, and everything fits. I can take it apart and paint it and repeat process with the other one. So that's where we're at. Alright guys, here I've got my braces that I made to go for the mud flaps. My new braces to replace the ones that I did before, much better. These are all one piece that's just been heat bent and welded and painted, And then I've got my new mud flaps from Deezee that I got from RealTrucks, and they've been pretty good. That's where I also got these Deezees here, and I also got this rear bumper here from RealTruck also. So they've done me pretty good on this stuff. So anyway, I got to get to it. Already done the mock-up, so I know it's going to fit. So I just got to screw and bolt everything together and put them on. And I'll let you see what they look like. Here's another pro tip. If you want things to stay for keeps, always use lock washers. You stick your lock washer on, just like that. And then you stick your nut on. And when you cinch that up with your wrenches, it's not going to come off. All right. So I got to say, the mud flaps, Deezee, are a real compliment to the rest of the truck. Just look at that undercarriage there. And along with the bumper, goes well with it. Got the diamond and the diamond and more of the diamond, also by Deezee. And gotta say, it all looks together really, really well. I'm very pleased. Especially after I modified and made new brackets that I know are not going to come apart. And so solidly built, just like the F-250 deserves. So, alright, so another mission accomplished. Y'all know I love working on this old truck, and you know, it reminds me of something. I know I've been telling y'all for a while that we were going to talk about the Valley of Dry Bones. And that's kind of what this reminds me of. The Valley of Dry Bones. The Valley of Dry Bones is in Ezekiel. Okay. Ezekiel's prophet, Old Testament. Pretty cool guy. So Ezekiel is the Lord, the hand of the Lord comes on him, and he has him in this valley that's just filled with dry bones all over the place, just dried up old bones everywhere. And God says to Ezekiel's like, Ezekiel, what do you see there? He's like, well, I see a valley of dry bones. He's like, speak life into those bones. Tell them to put themselves together. And Ezekiel's like, okay, well, God's got a lot of faith in me. So, but, you know, Ezekiel's obedient. He always is. Every time God tells him to do something, he tries it. Even if it sounds strange or bizarre or impossible, he will try it. And so Ezekiel speaks out and he says to those dry bones to put themselves together and to come to life. And then all of a sudden there's just all this rattling and clattering and all these bones coming together, and it's like a skeleton army like coming up together. And then tendons start forming on the bones and flesh comes on the bones. And then all of these people are there, just thousands and thousands and thousands in the valley. It's no longer a valley of dry bones, but now it's a valley of a whole bunch of people, but they're lifeless. They're not really animated yet. And God says, breathe life into them. And again, Ezekiel's like, that reminds me kind of what God did in the beginning when he breathed life into Adam and started this whole thing. So he's like, he speaks for there to breathe life into these. And and so a great wind comes and breathes life into them, and they all come to life, and there's this great army that's there before him. And what this is all about is that Israel had stumbled and fallen and again and again and again and again, and of course we know the history of that, how many times they succeed and fail. And this was just another one of those times, and they were just so down in failure that it was like a valley of dry bones. It was like a car that was found that is just missing half of what it's there, and the rest is rusted. And you breathe life back into it. So what God was trying to tell him is that he needs to breathe life back into the people of Israel, that he needs to prophesy to the people of Israel, that he needs to start a revival and get the people of Israel back on fire again for the Lord, and they will become a great army again, and they will do well, and they will prosper. And I'm reading this book called Point Man. Still reading it. I just haven't had a lot of time to read. But in this book called Point Man, he talks about our prayer time and stuff. And this is more directed at men in the book, but I see this directed at everybody. Okay, he's like, how much time do you spend in your prayer life? How much time do you spend reading your Bible? And yeah, you know what? Average Christian probably has to blow the dust off their Bible. And that's a shame, because that's how God speaks to us. He speaks to us through his word, and so just like exercising your body, how much time do you spend doing exercise, doing crunches and riding a bike and walking, running, jogging, whatever it is you do to be in health and to get in health, what do you do to do that, And, most programs will say that you need to do like about 30 to 45 minutes 2 or 3 times a week, at least, is what you need to do to get yourself in good physical shape. And so, if you don't have a lot of time during each and every day, if you can take, start with one day, and then move to 2 days, and then to 3 days. If you can spend 3 days a week out of your time, carve out 3 days for God, okay, and spend about 30 to 45 minutes reading in the Word and then praying and listening to God as he speaks to you when you read the Word, and he'll speak to you while you're praying. You'll hear his voice in your head while you're praying. He will reveal himself to you. I promise you, he will do that. I personally like to start every single morning out with the Lord. Sometimes it makes me late for what I need to do, but that's just the way it is. So be it. That's what my commitment is. And so every single morning when I get up, I start the coffee pot, I let the dog outside, and then I get out my Bible, and I sit down with my cup of coffee, and I say good morning to the Lord, and I start reading, and I'll read for however long I feel like God needs me to read that day, and then I will spend time in prayer, and, don't just pray, oh, God, please bless Johnny, or, my Aunt Martha, or something like that. You got to speak some specifics, speak specifics in there, Lord, I just pray for Tommy, and I just pray for his spirit, because I know he doesn't know you. And I pray that you would soften his heart, that you would open his eyes, that you would surround him with people who know Jesus Christ, that will lead and guide him on that pathway. And be very specific like that, and creative, and you'll think of other things, about that. And the more you do this, the easier it'll get. I promise. It's just like exercise. The first day you start, it's a little uncomfortable. After 2 or 3 days, you can be a little sore, okay? But once you get past that, then it just becomes a daily routine. and it becomes part of what you do, and it will breathe life. Imagine, okay? Imagine, if you will, if just all the Christian men in America would spend that much time in prayer every week, whether it's every day or 3 days a week or whatever, but if they would spend that much time in prayer and in reading the Word, imagine what this country would be like. Imagine how God would use us. Imagine how things would get solved, like starvation and homelessness and crime and violence and all kinds of things. Imagine how a lot of that stuff would get itself fixed in a godly manner. And then you've got all the women out there. And if they start doing that, so, men, women, Christians, it's time. It's time. I am speaking to the bones right now. The valley of dry bones. I am speaking to that valley of dry bones, and I am saying, put yourselves together and breathe life into you. And that's what I've got for you today. So, this is The Way. Reverend Colonel, signing out.